The world is holding its breath. As we stand here on August 19, 2025, one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet is the narrow body of water separating China from Taiwan. This is not a distant regional dispute. It is a global crisis in the making, a confrontation that could reshape the international order as we know it. The stakes could not be higher. At its heart, this is a clash of ideologies. The authoritarian vision of a rising China against the democratic aspirations of a small island nation. It is a story about power, identity, and the future of freedom in the 21st century. Taiwan is the world's undisputed leader in the manufacturing of advanced semiconductors, the tiny chips that power everything from our smartphones and cars to our data centers and military equipment. A conflict in the Taiwan Strait would instantly sever this critical supply chain, sending shockwaves through the global economy far greater than those caused by the COVID-19 pandemic or the war in Ukraine. To understand the crisis of 2025, we must look back to 1949. This was the year the Chinese Civil War reached its climax. Mao Zedong's communist forces declared victory on the mainland, establishing the People's Republic of China. The defeated nationalist government, the Republic of China led by Chiang Kai-shek, fled across the strait to the island of Taiwan. They brought with them the Republic of China's constitution, its gold reserves, and the claim to be the one true government of all of China. For decades, the world was presented with a confusing reality. Two governments, each claiming legitimacy over the same territory, separated by just 100 miles of water. For many years, this was a standoff between two authoritarian regimes. But while the diplomatic world was changing, something remarkable was happening within Taiwan itself. The island began a peaceful, gradual transition to democracy. Starting in the late 1980s, martial law was lifted, opposition parties were legalized, and direct presidential elections were held. Taiwan transformed itself from a military dictatorship into one of Asia's most vibrant and progressive democracies. For the Chinese Communist Party and its leader, Xi Jinping, the integration of Taiwan is not just a policy goal, it is a historical mission. It is framed as the final step in washing away the century of humiliation, a period of foreign intervention and territorial loss that began in the 19th century. Xi Jinping has tied his personal legacy to achieving this great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, and Taiwan is the centerpiece of that vision. To achieve this goal, Beijing has employed a comprehensive strategy of pressure that falls just short of all-out war. This is often called gray zone warfare. It involves a relentless campaign of military, economic, and diplomatic coercion designed to wear down Taiwan's will to resist. Militarily, this is seen in the near-daily incursions of Chinese fighter jets, bombers, and warships into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. To secure its future, Taiwan has pursued a porcupine strategy. The idea is not to defeat the massive People's Liberation Army in a conventional war, which would be impossible. Instead, the goal is to make an invasion so difficult, costly, and painful for Beijing that it would be deterred from even trying. It is a pragmatic and determined stand by a people who simply wish to continue living in the free and open society they have built for themselves. The United States plays a unique and, honestly, pivotal role in this tense drama. For decades, U.S. policy has been guided by a delicate and deliberately vague doctrine known as strategic ambiguity. This policy is rooted in the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979. On one hand, the U.S. acknowledges Beijing's One China principle, meaning it does not formally recognize Taiwan as an independent country. On the other hand, the act commits the United States to providing Taiwan with the military means to defend itself, and states that any attempt to determine Taiwan's future by non-peaceful means would be of grave concern to Washington. However, this long-standing policy is now under immense strain. As China's military power has grown exponentially, many analysts in Washington question whether ambiguity is still an effective deterrent. This shifting dynamic involves not just the United States, but also its key allies in the region. The past year has seen a marked and worrying acceleration of tensions across the Taiwan Strait, bringing the prospect of conflict into sharper focus. Following Taiwan's presidential election in early 2024, which brought to power a leader from the independence-leaning Democratic Progressive Party, Beijing responded with an unmistakable show of force. It launched its largest-ever military exercises encircling the island, effectively simulating a full-scale blockade. These drills, codenamed Joint Sword 2024A, were a clear signal that Beijing's patience was wearing thin. These military exercises were qualitatively different from previous ones. The drills involved coordinated movements of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force, demonstrating a growing capability to execute a complex joint operation. This move was designed to intimidate the Taiwanese public, test the island's defenses, and gauge the international response, all while desensitizing the world to such aggressive military actions. In response to this heightened military pressure, both Taiwan and the United States ramped up their defensive preparations. The United States in turn increased the frequency of its freedom of navigation operations, sailing warships through the Taiwan Strait and conducting large-scale naval exercises with allies like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. This cycle of action and reaction has created a more volatile and dangerous environment. The events of 2024 have left the region on a knife's edge as we enter 2025, with less trust and more firepower than ever before. The words of leaders matter immensely in a crisis, and the statements coming from Beijing, Taipei, and Washington in late 2023 and throughout 2024 have painted a stark picture of the deepening divide. China's leader Xi Jinping has been unequivocal. In a key speech, he reiterated that the complete reunification of our country must be realized, and it will be realized. His language has consistently blended a call for peaceful unification with the stark warning that China will never promise to renounce the use of force, creating a sense of an impending deadline. On the other side of the strait, Taiwan's leadership has projected a message of calm resolve. Taiwan's president, elected in 2024, has consistently stated a commitment to maintaining the peaceful status quo. In a notable address, she declared, "We will not provoke, but we will not bow to pressure. Taiwan is a sovereign country, and its future must be decided by its 24 million people." This stance is a careful balancing act, aiming to reassure the international community while signaling that its democracy and sovereignty are non-negotiable. From Washington, the messaging has become noticeably more firm. While officially adhering to the One China policy, U.S. leaders have repeatedly underscored their rock-solid commitment to Taiwan's defense. In 2024, the U.S. Secretary of Defense stated that conflict in the Taiwan Strait would be devastating, and that the U.S. is doing everything it can to ensure that deterrence holds. President Biden himself has on several occasions broken with strategic ambiguity by stating that the U.S. would intervene militarily if China were to launch an unprovoked attack, though these remarks were often later clarified by his staff. A war over Taiwan would not be a distant conflict. Its consequences would be felt immediately and profoundly in every corner of the globe, affecting ordinary people in China, Taiwan, and far beyond. For the 24 million people of Taiwan, the impact would be direct and devastating. An invasion would bring unimaginable destruction to their homes, infrastructure, and the democratic society they have built. For the people of mainland China, the costs would also be severe, though in different ways. A war would demand immense national resources and would likely result in heavy casualties among the young soldiers tasked with carrying out the invasion. The economic shockwave would hit the rest of the world with the force of a tsunami. The centerpiece of this disruption is Taiwan's dominance in semiconductor manufacturing. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, alone produces over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. A conflict would halt this production overnight. The global supply of everything from iPhones and computers to cars and advanced medical equipment would grind to a halt. This would trigger a worldwide recession far deeper than anything experienced in recent memory. Major shipping lanes in the South China Sea, through which a third of global trade passes, would become war zones, paralyzing global supply chains and causing prices for all goods to skyrocket. Beyond the economic catastrophe, a U.S.-China conflict over Taiwan would shatter the global political order. The peaceful and interconnected world we have taken for granted for decades would cease to exist. As we navigate the tense landscape of 2025, the future of the Taiwan Strait stands at a critical fork in the road. One path leads to conflict, a catastrophic outcome that would unleash immense human suffering and global economic chaos. The other path leads toward a managed, if uneasy, peace, where deterrence holds and diplomacy prevents the worst from happening. The choice between these paths is not predetermined. The risks of war are real and growing. The combination of China's rising military power, its nationalist ambitions under Xi Jinping, and the erosion of trust and communication channels has created a volatile mix, yet there are still reasons for hope and powerful incentives for peace. The primary brake on conflict remains the staggering cost for all parties involved. For China, an invasion would be an enormous gamble with no guarantee of success. For the United States and its allies, war with a nuclear-armed China is a terrifying prospect. The challenge is to reinforce this deterrence while simultaneously creating off-ramps and diplomatic channels to manage the competition peacefully. Ultimately, the world must care about Taiwan, not just because of semiconductors or geopolitics, but because of the principles at stake. The fate of Taiwan will be a defining story of our time, and the quest to preserve peace in the Taiwan Strait is one of the most urgent and important challenges facing the world today.